When we think back to Cyclone Gabrielle, which hit, of course, a year ago today, there are many harrowing moments, and there was a moment or an interview, I guess, that particularly stood out for me. It was with Joe Farram of Rotor Force, one of the pilots, the many pilots on the day who were helping rescue hundreds of people. He was kind enough to talk to us at the time about one of those rescues. Take a look. Is there any rescue that really stands out to you, any family that, you know, you'll never forget?
There was an elderly couple on a roof with the water coming over the top of the spouting, and they had a fox terrier, and I got my crewman onto the roof to get the people ready to be lifted, and this dog was, struggling in the water, being carried by quite a tide, and the ROB boat that was floating around picking up people too, they intercepted and got the dog, and then when we got the elderly couple, she was in tears for the dog, but when she was reunited with the dog, that was something.
And Joe Farram joins us this morning. We were hearing about that moment when you reunited that lady with her dog, and you spoke to me about this earlier, and you said it's actually a moment that still brings quite a lot of emotion to you.
Most definitely. Good morning, Mel. You have special moments that come back to you, and that was particularly one because we had an absolute desperate situation with very emotional people, and they'd lost their livelihoods and their homes and all their belongings, and they had their pride and joy, their little dog in their hands. And for us to fly in and see that dog escape and then go into the floodwaters, and then for her to be on board and extremely distraught over the situation, and for me to be able to point out that the dog had been rescued by an IRB boat, she went from a lady that was so distressed to I've just won lotto, and the gratitude. And, even my crewman, it brings tears to us when we really dwell on that moment. It's a very special moment.
You rescued hundreds of people, including your first rescue was a baby that was just days old. When you look back at what happened that day, do you think, gee, it could have been so much worse?
Most definitely. Our biggest concern was there was no communication, so we were using local knowledge. The aircraft operators and pilots were all communicating on aviation radio, but we're looking at the local area, and the floodwaters were rising around us. It was happening underneath us. So my biggest fear was, had we missed someone, and we'd fly over homes and there would be no one on the roof, and then 20 minutes later there's someone on the roof. They'd broken out through the ceiling onto the roof or whatever. So my concern was there someone out there that we hadn't managed to find?
You'll remember the RSC workers too, who are the seasonal workers who were on top of the roof, and they were live streaming that. It was Joe who was able to very skillfully go and rescue them. Joe, you've been reunited with a lot of people that you had rescued that day, but there's one rescue in particular, and we want to be able to help you connect with this rescue, but it's a tricky one. Tell us.
Yeah, well, animals, they're very innocent, and we were flying over a particular horse that was on the stop banks, and it was very isolated. It was amongst a lot of debris. There was trees, apple boxes, there were cars and so forth, and we'd noted this horse, and for 3 days we're flying over it, and I eventually said to my crewman, we're going to land there, no one else is dying at the moment, let's get this horse out of there. And having grown up on a farm, we landed and there was apples lying around amongst the silt, and I picked all these apples up, and we made a bit of a track to this horse, and you have to learn, you win the horse's confidence. And so I spoke and spent a little bit of time calming the horse and feeding him, but it wouldn't lead, so I took my belt off and I'm leading it, and the horse will hesitate when they're unsure of its footing, and I was encouraging it to walk through the silted area, and next thing the horse bolted, my pants dropped off, and I'm trying to walk through the silt, but we got through the silt, got my pants back on, and I'd love to reunite, with that horse. And it was at Puketapu, between Puketapu and Dartmoor on the stop banks, and its fellow horse was one that was found on top of a roof.
Yes, we remember that story. Okay, so if anybody knows anything about that horse, please get in touch. We'd love to help Joe reunite.